took this job because I thought I needed silence after what happened in the city. What I saw, I didn't want people anymore. I didn't want the sound of sirens or phones, or my own name echoing through tight apartment walls. The forest was the opposite of that. Quiet, empty, safe, in a way that felt older than memory. So when the ad came up, Night Patrol needed perimeter security, remote location, must be comfortable working alone. I applied without hesitation. Number, details about the company. No promises. Just a strange phone interview and a message that simply said, "Report to Station 17 before sunset. Bring nothing personal." It wasn't the money that made me say yes. It was the chance to disappear. The patrol station sits near the edge of a massive forest that doesn't appear on most digital maps. A boundary between public lands and something called the Northern Preservation Zone. That's what the contract said, anyway. A long stretch of trees so thick, light barely touches the floor. No camps, no hunting, no trespassing. The land is owned by a private foundation I'd never heard of. Their logo is a tree with one eye at the center. I didn't ask questions. Not then. I arrived in the early hours of evening, driving past broken road signs and fenced trails. By the time I reached the ranger station, my cell signal had dropped completely, and the last 30 miles of road had been lined with deer that didn't move when I passed. One of them stood in the center of the road, just stood there, eyes like wet marbles, watching me with a stillness that felt too rehearsed. I had to edge past it with my truck, and it never flinched. The station itself was clean but old. Wooden siding, narrow porch, and one yellow bulb flickering above the door like it was trying to warn me away. Inside, a cot, a radio, a wall of maps, and a single binder resting in the center of the desk. Next to it, a note in handwritten block letters. Do not cross the tree line. Read the rules before sunset. I remember staring at the note for a long time, wondering if it was a joke, some weird orientation thing, but the silence outside was so complete it made the words feel heavier than they should have. I hadn't even met anyone yet. No supervisor, no coworker, no vehicle in sight. Just me, a binder, and an entire forest pressed up against the windows as the last sliver of daylight faded through the trees. I sat down, opened the binder, and began to read. The rules were simple, but they didn't make any sense. And in the quiet between the wind and the hum of that old desk lamp, I swear I heard something tapping. Just once. A soft, dragging scratch, coming from the woods, from the other side of the tree line. The next morning, I expected someone to show up. A briefing maybe. A partner. Hell, even a radio check-in. But the only sound I woke up to was the distant rustle of leaves and the low groan of wood cooling in the beams. Above me, I stepped outside just after dawn. The air was sharp, pine-heavy, still damp from the fog that clung to the edges of the trees, like it didn't want to let go. There was no road behind the cabin anymore. I swear where I'd driven in the night before, there was now only brush, roots, and trees. No tire marks, no gravel, just forest. I turned back inside, uneasy. That's when I picked up the binder again. The first page was a welcome letter, brief, oddly formal. Welcome, Night Patroller. Your duty is simple. Guard the southern perimeter. Walk the designated path between markers 1 through 12 each night, from sunset to sunrise. Do not deviate. Do not engage. Follow the rules, and you will be safe. The next page was labeled in bold red letters. Rules for Station 17 Night Patrol. They were numbered, typed cleanly, underlined in places, as if whoever wrote them needed to remind themselves. Here's exactly what it said. 1. Never cross the tree line. Not for any reason. No one who has ever crossed has come back. 2. Begin your patrol at 7:04 p.m. sharp. No earlier, no later. Walk the loop clockwise. Markers are carved, stones with red symbols. Do not look at the symbols directly after dusk. 3. If you hear your own voice calling from the forest, do not answer. It is not you. It wants your name. 4. If you spot someone standing between the trees, but outside the line, wave politely and keep walking. They will not follow unless acknowledged. 5. Do not speak to the man in the orange jacket. He will not appear on your first night. If he waves, do not wave back. If he smiles, close your eyes. 6. If you find an extra marker that wasn't there before, skip it. Do not look directly at it. Do not touch it. Walk around it in a wide arc and keep moving. 7. At exactly 3:33 a.m., you may feel a strong urge to step off the trail. This is a false urge. Sit down, cover your ears. Do not move for 3 minutes. 8. You may occasionally hear scratching sounds from the far side of the tree line. Do not investigate. Do not shine your light toward it. It cannot cross, but it watches. 9. Before sunrise, return to the cabin. Lock the door. Turn off all lights. Wait silently until the sun is fully above the tree line. You may sleep once it's daylight. I reread the list 3 times, waiting for a punchline that never came. What was this? Some kind of psychological test? Ritualistic hazing for new hires? I didn't even know who employed me. There had been no interview beyond that strange call, and yet something about the rules felt deadly serious. It wasn't just what was written, it was what was implied. That there were things in the woods, that they knew us, that they mimicked, that they waited. I stared out the cabin window at the wall of trees pressing close like a breath held just too long. They seemed darker than they should have in daylight. Too tall, too still, that entire day. I didn't leave the cabin. I memorized the rules. 7:04 p.m. That was the time, that evening. As the sun began to sink into the tree line, like an old secret, I strapped on the lantern they'd left me, checked my watch, and stepped outside. The woods were quiet, almost too quiet. No birds, no wind, just the long trail ahead, marked by faint red stones, half buried in dirt and moss. I reached marker 1 just as the digital clock on my wrist clicked over to 7:04 p.m. And the moment it did, the air changed, like something had just noticed me. I took my first step into the loop, keeping my eyes low, my pace steady. 12 markers, one long path around the cabin. No shortcuts, no talking, no looking at the red symbols too closely, and above all never crossed the tree line. It was only then I noticed the stones weren't just placed beside the path. They formed a line, a perfect curve, separating the trail from the forest itself. Beyond them, the trees leaned inward, unnaturally, bent, like they were all listening, and somewhere far off, something scratched, long, deep, wet, as though claw-meeting bark was the forest's way of whispering my name. My first night walking the loop was long, too long, even though it should have only taken about an hour to walk the full circle. Time warped strangely in those woods. Every step between the markers felt stretched, like the forest was pulling on the edges of each second, trying to hold me there. Still, I followed the rules, didn't speak, didn't shine my light into the woods, didn't stop walking. By the time I reached marker 12 and turned back toward the cabin, I realized I was gripping the flashlight so tightly, my knuckles were pale and aching, but I made it. Locked the door behind me, waited until sunrise. Nothing happened, so the second night, I got cocky. I thought maybe it was just an elaborate scare tactic, a way to keep people alert. And honestly, a part of me wanted something to happen, just to prove the fear wasn't in my head. That's probably why I broke the rule. It was just a small thing, hardly a violation. Really, it was near marker 4. I'd been walking the trail for about an hour. The air was heavy, sticky. The kind of stillness that makes your ears ring, because there's nothing to compete with the silence. Then I saw something odd, not in the woods, but on the trail. A photograph. It lay half buried in the dirt just off the path, its corners chewed and damp. I don't know why I noticed it. It was dark. My light barely touched the edges, but something about the shape made me pause. Without thinking, I stepped just slightly off the trails, just a few inches, and picked it up. It was a photo of me, standing in front of the cabin, from behind. Taken that morning, my stomach dropped. I scanned the tree line. Nothing, but something felt different, like gravity itself had shifted. I stepped back onto the path immediately, crumpling the photo in my hand, and that's when I heard it. My voice from deep in the woods, calling softly, "Hey, you dropped something." It was exactly my voice. Same tone, same cadence. The kind of sound that would fool you if you weren't listening closely. "Come here, it's okay." I turned and walked, fast. I didn't look into the woods. I didn't answer, but it followed. Every few feet, it repeated, "Don't ignore me. Why are you running? Don't you remember?" At marker 6, it changed. The voice stopped mimicking me. It started laughing, not loud, just under its breath. Raspy, choking laughter that didn't sound human anymore. I made it back to the cabin just before 4 a.m., locked the door, sat in the dark with my back against the wall. That night, I didn't sleep, not even after the sun rose. I just stared at the crumpled photo. In my hand, it was dry now, but the back had writing I hadn't seen before. A messy scrawl, etched in something darker than ink. "You stepped off. Now it knows you." I didn't patrol the next night. I told myself it was just to regroup. That one missed loop couldn't matter, not if I stayed inside, locked the doors, followed the rest of the rules. But I didn't sleep either. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw trees. Not just trees' faces, hidden in bark eyes that didn't blink. Things that weren't supposed to have teeth. And always that voice. My voice, repeating words I hadn't said. By the time night fell, I had every lamp on in the cabin. The binder sat closed on the desk, but I knew the rules were watching me somehow. At exactly 3:33 a.m., the scratching started again, but this time it wasn't distant. It was on the porch. The wood groaned beneath. Wait. Slow footsteps, circling. A dragging sound, like claws or knuckles, scraping side to side just beneath the window. I turned off the lights and held my breath. Then it spoke again. Not my voice this time. A new one, lower, dry. "Why didn't you come walk?" I didn't move. "Come out. You forgot something." Then silence. I waited until dawn before even standing up again. The next day, I told myself I'd imagined it. Isolation does things to the brain, tricks it. But when I stepped outside, I saw them top prints. Long, bare, wrong, toes too spread apart. No heel marks. They circled the cabin 3 times and led right up to the front. Door then vanished completely. No exit trail, just gone. So the following night, I returned to the patrol. I figured if the forest wanted something, maybe I needed to give it what it was asking for. I began at 7:04 p.m. sharp. Marker 1, lantern steady, back on the path. This time, I didn't dare look down. Not even when I saw movement in the corners of my vision. Things crawling just outside the reach of my light. I reached marker 7, without incident. That's where I saw him. The man in the orange jacket. Exactly like the rules said, he stood just off the trail, between markers 7 and 8. His head was tilted. His face was wrong, not disfigured, not monstrous, just unfinished. Like someone had tried to build a human from memory, but had run out of time. He raised one hand and waved slowly. I stopped walking. Everything in my body screamed to wave back. Like muscle memory. Like he'd been a friend once, and I'd just forgotten. But I didn't move. His smile widened. Too wide. He took a step forward, still outside the line of red markers, but closer now. His mouth opened like he was about to speak, but instead, he hummed. A single, low note that vibrated in my bones. I shut my eyes, remembered the rule. If he smiles, close your eyes. I counted 30 seconds. When I opened them again, he was gone. Nothing left but the faint smell of ash. My knees nearly buckled. I ran the rest of the loop without stopping. But before I reached the final marker, I noticed something else, something worse. There was a new stone, a 13th marker. It hadn't been there before. It was smaller. Its symbol pulsed faintly, like it was glowing from beneath the moss, and it was on the trail. I stopped. The rule was clear. If you see an extra marker, don't touch it. Don't even look at the symbol. I forced myself to turn away, but I felt it watching me, breathing, waiting. I circled around it, as wide as I could, never looking down, and as I passed it, the air behind me went cold, so cold my breath froze midair. I didn't turn around. I just walked faster. When I reached the cabin, I slammed the door shut and bolted it, and only then did I realize the 13th stone hadn't been for show. It had been placed inside the loop, inside my patrol route, and that meant something had crossed over. I didn't patrol the next night, not because I was afraid I'd already moved past fear. It was something deeper now. Recognition. That 13th marker hadn't been a warning. It was a claim. Something had marked the patrol loop from within, and I had no idea what that meant. Only that the rules hadn't mentioned it, which meant even the binder wasn't complete. I needed to understand what this place really was. So the next morning, after hours of sitting at the table trying not to look at the trees pressing against the windows, I began to search the cabin, carefully. There wasn't much. The building was stripped down, functional. One cat, one desk, a small generator room in the back, and a locked trapdoor in the floor of the storage closet. I hadn't noticed that last one until I shifted a stack of firewood and heard a thud that didn't belong. The trapdoor was metal, no handle, just for heavy bolts and a sliding plate over a keyhole. But I found the key. It was taped beneath the sink in a little plastic bag, labeled only for emergency protocol. I waited until noon. I don't know why that mattered to me, but somehow it felt safer to open it when the sun was high and bright, and the woods looked a little less like they wanted to eat me. The door creaked open with a metallic hiss. The air that rose from below was stale and wet. A ladder descended into darkness. I took my flashlight and climbed down. The room below was narrow and lined with shelves. Old records, binders, boxers, dust-coated, everything. It smelled like mildew and rot and something older than paper. There was a desk against the far wall. On it, a monitor, a cracked, blinking relic of a machine from another era. Somehow, still powered, it showed 12 camera feeds, all black and white, all grainy, all pointed toward the loop. Each marker had its own camera, including one trained on the cabin porch. I leaned closer. The feed from marker 13 was live. That shouldn't have been possible. The binder never mentioned a camera for a 13th marker. I clicked into it. The image was unstable. The stone was there, clearly visible, but around it, the trees were bent inward, like they were leaning to listen, or hiding something just behind the bark. Then, the feed glitched. For a fraction of a second, a figure appeared, just outside the red line. Tall, thin, wearing a ranger's uniform from at least 50 years ago. His face was missing. Not damaged, just not there. Then the screen flicked back to static. I had started digging through the files stacked beside the monitor. One binder stood out, older, faded. The label read, Station Logs. Personnel Reports, 1967 to 1982. I flipped through it. Dozens of names, patrol notes, incidents. The deeper I read, the worse it got. May 3, 1972, Officer C. Blake broke Rule 4. Spoke to the man in the orange jacket. Refused to eat. Kept whispering. He told me what I really am. Walked into the trees during patrol and never came back. Station marked as compromised for 6 nights. October 14th, 1976. Officer D. Martinez reported hearing her voice singing from marker 8. Screamed for 2 hours. When we broke protocol and pulled her out, she had no eyes left. Claimed she gave them willingly. Transferred to containment. Died 2 nights later. February 9th, 1981. Emergency entry, new marker appeared inside loop. Entity breached path boundary. Station closed. New loop constructed. Do not return to old loop. Do not return to old loop. The final entry was a single page, handwritten, torn at the edges. It wasn't dated. They don't come from outside. That's the mistake. They grow in us. The rules don't protect, they delay. Every step we take in that loop feeds them. They learn our shape, our voice. The scratching is not them trying to get in, it's them trying to remember what they were before we came. One day, someone will wave back. They always do. That's how the new forest grows. I dropped the binder, backed away from the desk, and then the camera feeds changed. One by one, the screens flickered. All of them except marker 13 went black dot. Then the porch feed lit up. The camera was showing me right now, standing in the bunker, watching the screen. But behind me, in the frame, I saw movement, a shape. I spun around. No one was there, but when I looked back at the monitor, the shape was closer, not moving, just appearing, frame by frame, like it had always been there, and I was just now seeing it. I turned off the screen, climbed the ladder, locked the trap door. I didn't sleep that day. I waited until sundown, then went back to the desk, opened the patrol binder, and crossed out all 12 rules with a black marker. They weren't enough. Something else was coming, something that knew me. Now, that night, I didn't wait until 7:04 p.m. I couldn't. The moment the sun dipped behind the horizon, I felt it. Something in the trees shifted. The pressure changed, like the forest was holding its breath. And then the scratching started. Again, not distant. This time not even on the porch. It was inside the walls, thin, careful claws dragging along the floorboards, under the cot, under the desk. From within the walls, I grabbed the flashlight and the binder and ran. I didn't lock the door behind me. There was no point anymore. The trail was the only place I knew how to navigate, the only area with any kind of boundary. But the moment I stepped onto the path, I realized something had changed. There were more markers now. Not 12, not 13, at least 20, maybe more, stretching out into the dark like teeth, each glowing faintly with a red hue. Some were cracked, some were bleeding, not dripping blood, but weeping it, like the stone itself was alive. The first few markers looked familiar, but after marker 5, the path twisted, bent inward. The line curved unnaturally until I was no longer circling. The cabin eye was going deeper, and the scratching followed. Only now, it wasn't claws, it was footsteps. Something walking behind me. Not fast, not slow, just matching my pace. I spun around, light, caught only trees, bark, empty path, then dash movement to my right. Just past the markers, a man, not the man in the orange jacket. This one was wearing my clothes, standing dead still, half lit in the beam of my flashlight. Staring straight ahead, I raised the light toward his face, and he smiled my smile, perfect, identical. He didn't speak, he didn't move, he just pointed. Behind me, and against every instinct, I turned. There were dozens of them, silhouettes, half-formed, standing just beyond the red stones, barely visible, all facing inward, all watching. None stepped over the line, but I knew they would soon. I ran, not because I thought I could get away, because some part of me believed if I could finish the loop, I could reset something, as if that made any sense. Marker 14, 15, 16. The trail stretched farther than it had before. Time unraveled. My legs ached, lungs burned. But I didn't stop at marker 17. I saw it, a massive shape, hunched and breathing. It was crouched at the base of the next stone, head buried in its arms like it was waiting to be noticed. I tried to move around it, quietly, but as soon as I passed, it rose, 7 feet tall, hairless, wet skin stretched too thin over long bones. It had no eyes, just holes, deep and black and screaming. It shrieked once, not loud, not angry, hungry. Then it lunged. I dove off the trail before I even realized what I was doing. My back hit the ground hard. The wind knocked from my lungs, but the creature stopped. It froze at the marker. Its body twitched, glitching like a corrupted file. One moment hunched, the next elongated, legs bending in reverse. It couldn't cross. Not yet. I scrambled back onto the path and ran. No idea how far I went. The trail had changed completely. The markers were different now, taller, pulsing red. No longer symbols but faces. Human faces. Some I recognized, my own, my father's, my old partner from the force, dead 2 years now. Their expressions twisted as I passed, weeping, laughing, screaming, but all of them whispered the same thing. One more step, just one more step. It's almost your turn. I reached a clearing. A giant, flat stone stood in the center, surrounded by broken markers. Marker 24, carved into it, was a single phrase. Every patroller feeds the line, and on the stone a small black box, wooden, old, the kind used for ashes. I opened it. Inside was a torn patch from a ranger's uniform, soaked in something dark. Underneath, a folded paper. It read, "This is not a job, it's a filter. You patrol until the forest recognizes you. Then it keeps you. That's the deal. If you're reading this, you're next." I dropped the box, and behind me a voice, mine again, but cracked, echoing, "Don't stop now." I turned and saw myself standing at the edge of the clearing, but older, gaunt, hollow-eyed. My doppelganger took a step forward and, this time, he was inside the trail line. I ran, didn't even look where. Branches tore at my face. My breath turned to ice. The forest blurred, and then somehow I saw the cabin. Again, exactly where I'd started. Only different. It was rotting, windows shattered, wood blackened, the porch sagging in. I burst through the door. Inside, the walls were covered in photographs, all of me, different poses, different nights. Some where I was smiling, some where I was dead, some where I was walking the trail from the other side. I collapsed on the floor, shaking. Outside, I could hear it circling again, but this time, it wasn't scratching. It was digging. When I first took this job, I thought I was alone. That was part of the appeal. Solitude, silence, no oversight. But now I know someone's been watching me the whole time. I didn't realize it until I found the second trapdoor. It was hidden under the cot, beneath a warped floorboard I hadn't noticed before. Smaller than the first one, locked with the same kind of sliding panel, but this time, unlocked. Inside, stairs. Not a ladder. Old wooden ones that creaked with every step I took. The space below wasn't a basement or a bunker. It was a room made of stone, cold and round, like a cistern or a well that had been repurposed. At the center, a chair, and in the chair, a man. Alive, old, withered, and wrapped in a ranger's jacket. So faded the insignia had bled into the fabric. He didn't look surprised to see me, didn't even flinch. He just looked up and said, "You lasted longer than most." I froze. "You worked here?" I asked, my voice shaking. He nodded once. "I trained the first patrol team, back when we thought the rules were enough. Back before they started changing the path." I stared at him. "All this time you've been under the cabin?" He smiled faintly. "A tired, broken thing. Someone has to keep the record." I remembered the binder, the old files, the camera feeds. "You wrote the rules," I said. He nodded again. "I didn't write them. I recorded them. Big difference. They don't come from us. I stepped closer, the light trembling in my hand. Why didn't you warn anyone? Why keep sending new people in? He looked at me then, really looked, and there was a flicker of something behind his eyes. Guilt, maybe, or something worse. I did warn you, he said softly. The moment you saw the binder. You could have left then. Most people don't. Most think the rules are a challenge, a puzzle. They want to beat the system. He leaned forward slightly, and in that dim space, I saw what was really wrong with him. His shadow had moved on its own, even in the stillness. It twitched slow, jittery movements that didn't match his body. You're infected, I whispered. He smiled wider. It's not infection, it's recognition. The longer you stay, the more it remembers you, learns you. The forest doesn't punish you for breaking rules. It punishes you for being seen. I took a step back. You brought me here to replace you. It wasn't a question. He nodded anyway. My time's done. I can't leave the loop anymore. If I cross the boundary, I don't come back. He lifted his arm and rolled up his sleeve. Underneath, his skin was covered in red lines. Not drawn-grown like the same symbols on the stones had etched themselves into his flesh. He saw the horror in my face and sighed. I stayed too long. I wrote too many rules. Now I am one. He pointed toward the stairs. You have one choice left, he said. Run, and it will follow. Stay, and you'll become part of it. Or he trailed off. Or what? I asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he pressed something into my hand. A small black box, identical to the one I found in the clearing. Only this one had a label, Station 18. I looked at him, realization blooming in my chest like rot. You're sending me to the next loop. He didn't deny it. The walls began to tremble. Above us, I could hear scratching again, not from the porch this time, from the ceiling. The forest had found me. The old ranger looked up, his voice suddenly sharp. Go. If you stay, you won't just die, you'll split. And part of you will keep walking the trail until it finds someone else to take your place. I didn't thank him, didn't say goodbye. I just climbed the stairs, closed the trap door, and left him there in the dark as I stepped out into the cold air. I looked back at the cabin one last time. Smoke was rising from the chimney now, but I hadn't lit a fire. I ran through the clearing, past the crooked markers, back toward the place where the road used to be. The forest bent around me like a closing fist. Trees leaned harder, branches clawed at my jacket like they wanted to hold me back. But I didn't stop, not until I hit the edge of where the gravel once was, and found nothing. No road, no path, just forest in every direction, stretching endlessly. I dropped to my knees, breathing hard, light flickering. The air around me pulsed like something massive had just inhaled. Then I heard it, a car engine, far off, faint, real. I turned toward the sound, scrambled up a slope, and pushed through the trees, and then suddenly, there it was, a road. Real pavement, an old pickup truck driving past at a slow, winding pace. I stumbled out, waving my arms. The truck screeched to a halt. An old man leaned out the window, squinting at me. You from Station 17? He asked. I hesitated. How do you know that? He nodded to the black box in my hand. You've got the transfer package. Station 18's up the ridge. You're late. I stared at him, heart pounding. I'm not going there. He gave a small, sad smile. You think you get a choice? Then he threw something out the window. A key. It landed in the dirt by my boot, tagged and labeled. Station 18 North Loop. You can run, he said quietly. Hell, some do. But the forest remembers you now. Doesn't matter where you go, it's in you. I backed away. He didn't follow, just sat there with the engine idling, waiting. I turned and ran back into the woods, not toward Station 18. Not toward anything, just away. but the trees didn't feel the same anymore. The line wasn't there, no boundary, no trail, only eyes. I couldn't see them, but I could feel them, watching from under roots, inside hollows, just behind the bark. The forest wasn't trying to trap me, it was trying to replace me, and something already had when I finally collapsed. In a clearing and looked up, I saw movement again. Across from me, at the edge of the trees, stood someone dressed like me, same jacket, same light, but they weren't holding the black box. I was. They were holding a binder, the original binder, the one with the rules, and as I watched, they walked calmly to the center of the clearing and buried it. I didn't call out, didn't move, because I understood then this wasn't someone who looked like me. It was me, another version, maybe one who'd made a different choice, maybe one who'd waved back at the wrong time, or one who never found the second trapdoor. He glanced up once, as if sensing me, then walked away, vanishing between the trees, and just like that, the scratching stopped. The air lightened, the forest exhaled, and I was alone again. I found a nearby hill and climbed it until I could see over the canopy. No markers, no trails, no cabins, just endless forest. But in the distance, I saw it, a tower, new metal, blinking red light on top. Not a ranger station, something different, something watching. I looked down at the box in my hands. It was heavier now. I opened it. Inside wasn't a uniform patch. This time, it was a tooth. Too long. 2 human dots still bloody, wrapped in a torn piece of cloth, with a note pinned to it. Start your patrol at 6:46 p.m. this time. The rules have changed. I sat down under the trees and waited for the sun to set. I could keep running, or I could open the box again and follow the rules, different ones, in a different loop. But either way, I knew I'd never really left. The forest didn't need roads or paths or borders. It just needed a name, a shape, a voice dot, and now it had mine. It's been 6 days since then, or maybe 6 years. Time moves differently. Now, I patrol the new loop like they told me. 6:46 p.m. sharp, new markers, new rules. They came typed neatly in a different binder, sealed in plastic, different warnings. But the same message underneath. Don't deviate. Don't look back. Don't speak to the things that look like you. There's a new forest here. It's quieter, older, but it's watching too. Each night, I walk past twisted roots that curl like fingers, stones that hum when I get too close, a stream that flows in a perfect circle. The trees lean in different directions now, but they still listen. Sometimes, I see other patrollers. I think they don't talk. They never face me. Some of them walk backward. Some don't cast shadows. One night, I passed someone who was humming the same tune I heard from the man in the orange jacket. He didn't stop when I passed. Neither did I. The rules say you don't stop, even when you want to, even when you hear your mother's voice calling from the tree line, begging you to come home, even when you start forgetting what your own voice sounds like. Today I found a camera nailed to a tree, facing the trail. It wasn't old. It was blinking, recording. I think someone is watching me now. Someone new. Maybe someone who got the same call I did. Maybe someone who'll find my binder. Eventually, they'll find the black box. They always do. That's how this place stays alive. Each patrol loop is just a mere twisting, stretching, breaking you down until it can wear you. But the scariest part? I don't want to leave anymore. Not really. Out there, I was nobody. Here, I matter. The forest remembers me. Every step I take, every breath I hold, it knows, and I can feel it growing closer. Last night, when I reached the final marker, something was waiting. It didn't speak. It didn't move. It just held out its hand. Inside, its palm was a flashlight, the same kind I used to carry. I didn't take it, but I wanted to. God help me, I still want to. If you ever find this story, If someone sends you a call, a job offer, a map with no roadstone, go, burn it, delete it. Forget you ever heard of Station 17, because if you answer, if you show up, the forest will remember you, and it will never let you leave.